I want to do the white nationalist clash that's taking place in the Republican Party right now, which is awesome. And it's a real, like, what did you think was going to fucking happen moment.
Investigation revealing the fierce backlash within the GOP against Tucker Carlson for his interview with controversial white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. So now this controversy is rocking one of America's most influential conservative groups, the Heritage Foundation, which helped create Project 2025. Kevin Roberts is the president of Heritage, and he is in damage control. I mean, initially he defended Carlson's interview. It was an interview that drew bipartisan outrage over comments like this.
And I think that neoconservatism, where does it arise from? It arises from Jewish leftists who were mugged by reality when they saw the surprise attack in the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of it for sure. But then, like, how do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen, like, be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish.
What you're saying about putting aside the tribal interest for the corporate interest, that's absolutely the case. The main challenge to that, a big challenge to that, is organized Jewry in America.
So Roberts now says that he was wrong to defend Carlson over that interview.
Organized Jewry in America. Okay, which way, Western man? Okay, you got Nick Fuentes over here being like, no, America is primarily invested in Israel because of the organized Jewry. And you got me on the other side saying, no, if every single American Jew became magically anti-Zionist overnight, America would still continue to defend Israel. Okay? Now, the pro-Israel advocacy network that masquerades as a Jewish advocacy network, because it's not, does it actually have tremendous amounts of influence? Of course it does. Of course it does. Does that also have a way in priming a lot of people into firmly committing to Israel's existence, no matter how violent it may get? Yes, it does. But I'm always going to be I'm always going to analyze the situation first and foremost from the perspective of imperialism and from a materialist framework. The entire reason as to why, for example, there is only one marginalized group's advocacy network that has institutional, like significant institutional power as opposed to others, even if other marginalized groups actually experience systematic racism, for example, is not because Americans by and large think Jews are magic people and they need to have a special place in American society, or because they're hypnotized by the organized Jewry, as Nick Fuentes is claiming. It's because it suits the purpose of the State Department in its endless desire to attach itself and fund the state of Israel as a destabilizing, unsinkable aircraft carrier in a resource-rich region. That is the major reason as to why the advocacy networks even exist, or it is a major reason as to why those advocacy networks have any sort of institutional prowess, any sort of institutional influence to begin with. This is why I brought up the example of, like, you know, systemic racism against black people that very much exists, and in a way where no such comparable marginalization in contemporary society exists for Jews, right? There is no comparison. If you were to try and make this comparison, people will fucking laugh at you, right? People are like, what the fuck are you talking about? This doesn't mean that anti-Semitism does not exist. It does. But at the systemic level, there is, especially now, no institutional anti-Semitism. There used to be. I mean, Jews were pushed away from going and getting higher education. Like there were definitely instances in American history in our not so distant past where Jews did experience systemic discrimination. It doesn't exist right now. It doesn't like there. That doesn't mean that there isn't marginalization in the form of like individual acts of racism, anti-Semitism specifically. It does. That is real. 100%. But Jews are white. By and large, Jews are seen as white people in this country. Okay? Just as there are no systemic forms of discrimination against Irish people or even Catholic people nowadays, okay? When those sorts of systematic forms of discrimination certainly existed for Catholic people, existed for Irish people, existed for Italian people, Jews are functionally white in this country, okay? That's it. And yet, even when it comes down to the Republican Party, they have this incredibly strange attitude where they go, you can make fun of everybody, you can undermine every person, except for white people. Don't do that too much. But you can, like, DEI, we're anti-DEI except for Jews. That's basically the way that the Republicans have presented it to the broader public. State-mandated, forcible wokeness against anti-Semitism, and basically state-mandated forcible racism for everybody else. The reason for that is because anti-Semitism is wielded as a weapon, cynically, by people who want to defend Israel. Okay? That's it. That's it. That's the only reason why there is a special status for this. If Israel wasn't seen by those in positions of power in this country, Jews and non-Jews alike, as a profoundly important foothold in the Middle East, nobody would give a shit about anti-Semitism, just like they don't give a shit about, anti-black racism, anti-brown racism, Islamophobia, blah, blah, blah. Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite. He's a Holocaust denier. He's an anti-Semite. That's just the truth, And what is now taking place within the Republican Party's ranks is that because they have basically trained an entire generation of Republicans to despise every group that doesn't fit the in-group identity, the inevitability, of these guys also becoming anti-Semitic was right there for anyone to see. Of course they were going to be anti-Semitic too. Why the fuck wouldn't they? You kept saying everyone is fucking woke, and you kept leaning in to destroying wokeness. You said everyone was experiencing suicidal empathy. Why wouldn't those guys inevitably turn around and say, you know who's actually responsible for this? Organized Jewry. Because that's what they've always said. This is, like, I talk about this all the time with respect to liberalism in general. Liberalism has this good-bad dynamic. There are good people and then there's evil people, right? There's this weird moralization of people's actions under liberalism that doesn't exist under a materialist analysis of the world that Marxists abide by. And ultimately, that means there's always going to be a need for an outgroup. And that outgroup has historically been Jews. This is the reason for pogroms. This was always the reason the blood libel was always an inevitability that Jews would be outcast, seen as permanent outsiders. And the most extremist version of that was obviously, aside from Tsarist Russia, was Nazi Germany. Historically, every conspiracy needs to have a primary villain, a group of people that are outsiders, that are responsible, that are the shadowy puppet masters. And historically, that group of people has always been Jews. So it is additionally insane that conservative Jews that work within the confines of the Republican Party, whether it be neocons or whether it be, Mark Levin, David Horowitz, who obviously died recently, Ben Shapiro and the like, thought that this wasn't an inevitability. Okay? You said liberal and he thought you meant Democrats? No. I mean liberalism as a political theory. Jewish people have always been historically the popular scapegoat. When material conditions collapse, people turn around and blame the Jews. There is always a need to wrap this worldview that operates on good-bad dynamics with primary villains. Okay? Like the people responsible for it. The Marxist opinion on this, the Marxist analysis on this dictates that people's class positions unite the capital owning class to operate alongside their class interests. The liberal position, the capitalist position, has no way of addressing why so many wealthy people operate the way that they do, so they look for alternative villains. Nick is the best. Nick is the GOAT. Okay. This is why the liberal position, if left unexamined, if left unaddressed, especially if the average person who considers themselves to be liberal or, the average capitalist is not educated on any sort of Marxist alternative, any sort of materialist analysis, will inevitably try to make sense of all of the harm that they're experiencing, especially in times of unique economic hardship. And opportunists, fascist opportunists, reactionary fascist opportunists like Nick Fuentes, will take advantage of that anxiety and turn around and position the historical outgroup that has consistently been vilified, at least under the Christian tradition, the Jews, as the primary group of people that is responsible for everything.
You better be careful. Because if I'm a Nazi, then there's millions of young people that are following a fucking Nazi. So you better be careful about those words. You're saying I'm a Nazi, I'm a monster. There's a million monsters then. There's a million Nazis out there then. Because they love my show and they agree with me way more than they agree with you. And they're pissed off.
How's he still doing this? I'm not a Nazi bit? No, he's not doing it. He's basically saying, like, what are you going to do about it? I don't think he's saying that he's not a Nazi. I think he's saying that, you don't know what's coming. He's gloating.
And they'll follow me into battle. So you better be real careful. You're barking up the wrong tree with that.
The groypers were mad at Ted Cruz calling him a Nazi, of course, because the term, the Nazi moniker is still met with a lot of resistance by broader society. That's why neo-Nazis try to hide their power level. That's why Nazis try to only do subtle winks and nods, and sometimes not so subtle winks and nods towards what they actually are and what they represent. He's not hiding it well. Just a couple days ago, where is the lie? Fuentes, Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be in prison for the most part, and we would live in paradise. But I'm sure I'm taking this out of context, right? Where is the lie? His fans fully understand the situation and are also now tweeting out screenshots of their woke lib parent texts asking them if they like Nick. The only difference with the original Nazis is that they were ex-militaries from World War I, while in his case, it's mostly virgin incels afraid of going outside. Yeah, but the more we spend time online, the more damage you can fucking do. Own your fucking mom, dude. Time to stand up to that bitch. Time to stand my ground, says Johnny Football. So you follow/listen to Nick Fuentes? Yes. That's sick, bro. Fucking sick. I just own my mom in the marketplace of ideas. That bitch. The problem is, like I said, you don't know who you're talking to on the internet. You don't know their background. In many instances, you just have no idea who the fuck you're talking to. So the difference between, like, in this moment, you can kind of get a better understanding of who this person is. But they obviously could present themselves as like yet another person. And when you have a fuck ton of losers who spend every waking moment indoors, for example, online, you can have motion online. And unfortunately, the more we spend time online, the more we greatly overemphasize what kind of motion people like Nick Fuentes have. Even if in the real world, most people will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Shut up. The current crisis at the Heritage has been a long time in the making, a deep dive into the history of right-wing anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. This is a useful genealogy of right-wing anti-Zionism, but searching for a respectable America First anti-Zionism in 2025 is a bit like searching for a respectable liberal Zionism. Those voices exist, but they are few and far between, and swimming against the dominant current. In theory, you may be able to pluck the Amcon brand of anti-Zionism out from the morass of conspiracism and revanchism in which it swims. In practice, it is inseparable. I agree. One of the funniest aspects of this that a lot of people don't understand is that because this movement is primarily online, you do sometimes end up seeing these unique voices in the real world. And the example I will, of course, point to is the two different groypers that Sneeko caught outside of the Zohar Mamdani rally. One was a brown dude, a Muslim brown dude, and the other one was Mexican. Both were brown. Both were Nick Fuentes acolytes. That to me is a testament of how extremely online this movement is. Sneeko himself is an ally of Nick Fuentes. He also happens to be fucking Haitian and Filipino, and now also Muslim. He reverted to Islam as well. Oh, he said he's leaving the red pill, new grift now? He says it's not really about masculinity, it's insecurity projected into the camera. No shit. I've been saying that for fucking years. No shit.
Way, bro. Yo, you ballsy with that fucking hat, nigga. Wait, yo.
I love your content.
Ballsy. Wait, what's your name, bro? Armando. Yeah. Are you Mexican?
I'm descendant, yeah.
You're a Mexican groyper, bro.
Just like Nick Fuentes.
Yo, you're gonna make this shit hot, bro. Get the fuck away from me, nigga.
What do you say? What do you say to this guy, bro? What do you say? Why does he caught them like they were fish? Brother, this is the most, like, another moment of vindication here. This is something that I've been talking about quite a bit. This is an extremely online movement, okay? Because if you are a white nationalist and you're organizing in the fucking real world, okay? If you're a white nationalist, you're organizing in the real world, after the 8th meeting, you'd be like, dog, everyone here is Mexican. What the fuck's going on? There is no better example that the groyper movement is just an extremely online phenomenon than this. Okay? You think at the clans meet, if after the 8th meeting, they realized that half the dudes were Guatemalan, half the dudes were fucking Muslim, that they wouldn't be like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, here, this is the other guy. Look, he finds another one.
What was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ummah power, bro.
What?
Ummah power.
Okay, for sure. You said Ummah power?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you're Muslim.
Yeah.
Oh, salam alaikum. I never heard that before. I was just trying to...
You've never heard the word ummah before? Okay, anyway.
Understand.
It's what makes us. Like Ummah power.
Another groyper?
Yeah, Wang half.
Yeah, he says Wang half, which is white ass N-word having a, what, I forget what it was. I don't know. That's like their little call sign. What is it? Oh, going hard as fuck. White ass N-word going hard as fuck. That's what that means. I don't need to learn that. Well, now you did. You know quite a bit, boss. Bitch, this is my fucking job. Of course. I am literally the fucking doctor of racism. Why the fuck do you question me? Okay? I know everything about racism. I have a PhD in white supremacy.
What? Niggas is multiplying. We a Mexican groyper. What are you, Pakistani?
No.
What are you?
I'm like from the Middle East side, like the upper side.
What?
Yeah.
What is that? The upper Middle East?
Yeah. I'm not gonna dox myself, but in that region.
Remember when I said one FIFA streamer came swinging at you over the Kaya stuff, and then I found out he likes Fuentes? He's Mexican-American too. His parents are fully Mexican. Brother, I mean, what do you expect? You got mad Hispanic dudes who fucking voted for Donald Trump. Why is it that crazy that a bunch of Mexican dudes on the internet found themselves following the gospel of Nick Fuentes? People are fucking desperate for a sense of community, and they want to be entertained, and they just kind of lean into this shit. At first, I think they get a response from what they have They at first they get a response from like the whatever the powerful entity in this is in their lives. In many instances, is school if you're young, right, or your parents, and it's about like pissing them off, right? Oh yeah, I'm getting a response out of them, and all of these like rule creators in your lives are somewhat liberal, okay? Because they want you to be raised right. They don't want you to be a fucking shithead, okay? And the more you prime your brain into this kind of reactionary politics, because you're getting a lot of negative responses out of people, the more you feel like a rule breaker, okay? The more you find yourself in this fucking community. You're like, ooh, I'm breaking rules. I'm being, wait, Dr. Anus's father is in the chat? Hi, Hasan. I was told my son came in here earlier starting trouble. I just wanted to apologize for his behavior. He's normally a good kid. I think he had a tough day at the hospital. Please do not ban him, as he really loves your streams. Yes.
You got Wang Hass from the upper Middle East, Nick. What did you do? What did that Tucker interview do, man?
It's Wang Hap, bro. I was way before Wang Hap than Tucker.
For sure, man. That's what's up. That's what's up, dude. I feel like, bro, it's peace, man. Assalamu alaikum. Is this real life? Like, what the fuck is happening?
I do think this shit's a wave. I think it's just like the fucking previous wave of Gamergate. Every wave creates like some of the more resilient, long-standing soldiers of this movement, right? Just like you see those fucking loser-ass, like 45-year-old video game commentary dipshits who still are just like, meh, constantly crying about titties and video games and whatnot. But the overwhelming majority of the fucking fan base inevitably grows out of this kind of shit. I also still believe that the overwhelming majority of people who are like, I'm a groyper, I'm a Nazi, like the ones that are running around right now, primarily young people, are eventually going to fucking grow out of it. But that doesn't mean that the movement doesn't grow. It does. With every wave, there's still a bunch of fucking hanger-ons that stick around and actually become, permanent soldiers of this kind of cause, this kind of movement, right? But it's especially established on shaky ground when, half of the people that got your TikTok clips are like not even a part of the in-group, that are a part of the out-group that is supposed to be destroyed, ethnically cleansed. They'll unironically be in here asking for free healthcare and safety nets when their parents get tired of this shit and throw them out. That too, but like, there are people in this community that also found themselves in the throes of this like right-wing algorithm. There were people who used to watch Ben Shapiro videos. There were people who watched Steven Crowder videos. There were people who watched like whatever the OG version of Nick Fuentes was on the internet, like Stefan Molnier, Milo Yiannopoulos, shit like that. And they fucking grew out of it, and they realized that was embarrassing. Part of that is because they found someone like myself. In many circumstances, because they're like, yeah, I grew out of that shit. It was really stupid because I started watching you and I was like, this is dumb as fuck. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, even though Joe Rogan is still very much around and still very much a part of that same pipeline. It is what it is. And I do think that a lot of people will, grow out of that. Yeah, Richard Spencer. In some instances, you just got to fucking wait it out, But some people don't. Some people don't grow out of it. In the meantime, let's take a look at what the fuck's going on at the Heritage Foundation. The little groypers keep finding themselves breaking these rules,
But maybe it is too late. I mean, Republican after Republican are now calling out both Carlson and Heritage, including Republican Congressman Randy Fine, who is Jewish.
When widely respected...
Oh, no. Don't bring out this guy, brother. Don't bring out this guy. I mean, like, yeah, Nazis are fucking gross. Neo-Nazis are gross and evil, but this guy is just the Jewish version of that. Like, what are we talking about? This is something that I try to stress to people all the time. It's like, I fucking hate Nazis. It doesn't matter if someone is a anti-Semitic Nazi or a Jewish Nazi, Randy Fine is quite literally a Nazi, but Jewish. He is a fascist. He is a primary supporter of Israel. He has advocated for Israel's genocide to continue. Like, what are we talking about? Okay, Nick Fuentes is a bigot. Why is Ben Shapiro not the same exact thing? Why is no one calling to cancel Shapiro or Randy Fine? Fine thinks Israel has a right to murder their Muslim neighbors. I think that's worse than anything Fuentes has said. Why the double standard? He's fucking cooking. He's cooking. It's true. Because, like, why do we hate Nazis, right? Why do we hate fascists? Okay? The reason why we hate fascists is, or the reason why we consider fascism to be dangerous is because we know what happens when it's left unaddressed, right? Because the most extreme version of like fascist policies in action is the Holocaust, right? Well, okay, Israeli fascists are doing the modern version of Holocaust. And we got their loudest fucking advocates amongst us all the time, chirping non-fucking stop. So in that regard, one dude is trying to restore the old guard version of Nazism. And so far, I guess his advocacy's death toll is like, I don't know, however many fucking school shootings that his fans have conducted. But Randy Fine's advocacy literally revolves around Israel, which has more numbers on the board in contemporary society. And yet, we look at Randy Fine as a perfectly valid, perfectly normal citizen and a normal part of American society. My advocacy is fuck Nick Fuentes, but we should also understand that people like Ben Shapiro and people like Randy Fine are exactly like Nick Fuentes, and we should treat them in a similar way. We should be like, yeah, you're out of your fucking mind. You're literally a conductor and defender of the modern Holocaust. It's ridiculous.
Sort of thought leaders like Tucker Carlson go insane because that's what he has become. People start to believe it. We ended our relationship with Heritage. We're working with many Jewish groups that have ended their relationship with Heritage. And really I have to do is talk to my colleagues, because the biggest issue we have with Tucker Carlson is people remember the Tucker Carlson of 5 years ago. That's what makes him so dangerous.
K-Files' Andrew Kaczynski is now out front. And Andrew, I mean, this is all fascinating. And I sort of saw it percolating on X a little while ago, and it just got bigger. And you know, when you can start to tell something is metastasizing in the social media world, and it appeared to be. So you've been talking to a lot of people within the Heritage Foundation. What are they saying?
That's right, Aaron. So the staff that we talked to told us the Heritage Foundation is in open revolt over the president's defense of Carlson. One senior staffer told us it was a, quote, absolute shit show inside the organization, saying that Roberts had, quote, lost control over the organization. He said there's an open rebellion, and this really all came to a head yesterday, where they had this all-hands meeting. This, like you said, this was kind of going around social media, where Roberts publicly apologized. According to a recording we obtained, Roberts told employees, quote, I made a mistake. I let you down. I let this institution down. I'm sorry, period, full stop. But he also made clear he has no plans to resign. Now, we also obtained messages between senior Heritage staff earlier in the week where they were discussing the situation. I want people to look at some of these messages that we looked at. One of them described the workplace as, quote, flailing and in damage control. Another said, this makes me sad and mad, in a comment to another top-level staffer. One senior staffer reposted a colleague saying, this crap is really hurting Heritage, and added, as it should. Another wrote, I'm disgusted by this, and I don't understand how this premeditated and orchestrated response that's talking about the initial Roberts video could come out of one of the biggest think tanks in the world. The source who provided this to us basically said they didn't want these names to be identified for fear of retaliation. And Aaron, this backlash is not just limited to the staff of Heritage, it's also reaching the foundation's donors. One major donor whose organization contributes more than $500,000 annually to Heritage Foundation told us that they had totally lost faith in Roberts. You can see their quote right there. They said, I'm waiting to see how things play out, but if Kevin remains as president, we will not be giving to Heritage. Likewise, the Zionist Organization of America, that's actually the oldest pro-Israel group in the United States, announced that it was withdrawing from Heritage's initiative on anti-Semitism unless Roberts publicly apologize and retract his praise for Carlson. Now, current and former staff that we spoke to, they really say this is part of an identity crisis that's at Heritage. It's pitting the longtime policy experts, people who have been there.
It's so crazy that it's like, it's different flavors of fascism.
For years, birthed this newer crop of Roberts, of operatives that actually came in under Roberts in 2021.
I mean, it's amazing. Heritage used to be, okay, you would go there for economic papers and you go, you know, for traditional, more conservative, small government. Right now, it's become this very, very different thing, Project 2025 and on, right?
Yeah, by the way, the funniest thing about Heritage being like, we got to be more Nazi, actually, is that they literally wrote Project Esther, which I warned about, which the Trump administration was following when they tried to deport Mahmoud Khalil and Mohsen Mahdawi and many others. They wrote Project Esther. That's their thing. And I told you back then, this shit has nothing to do with anti-Semitism, obviously. Former Heritage Foundation official straight up admits that Project Esther was designed to contradict and rebut and silence people who say Israel's committing a genocide.
Were the key factors that led your organization to decide to cut ties and withdraw?
Well, if one looks at the video from Kevin Roberts, the head of the Heritage Foundation from last week, he said he would back Tucker Carlson and Heritage would in all situations, would never disavow him. But after he set up a straw man and demonized Jews, those who were protesting Tucker Carlson's speech, as if they were a venomous coalition out to get Tucker. Tucker is obviously the one being venomous in this situation. If you look at the people he's now bringing on his show and the things he is saying himself, when he talks about Israel committing genocide in Gaza,
So is the Heritage Foundation anti-Semitic now? Yeah, there's always been anti-Semites on the right. It's just that there's a level of anti-Semitism that's permissible as long as you're pro-Israel. And the problem here is that the anti-Semites, the most visible anti-Semites now on the right, are also anti-Israel. That's the fucking issue. That is the Candace Owens dynamic. Ben Shapiro, who is Jewish and very pro-Israel, hired Candace Owens knowing full well that she was anti-Semitic. But at the time that Candace Owens was hired by Ben Shapiro, she also happened to be pro-Israel. Post-October 7, Candace Owens saw whichever way the wind was blowing and realized, oh, I shouldn't just be anti-Semitic, I should also be anti-Israel. That's when she got fired. And the same goes for a lot of these folks. It's not their anti-Semitism that's a problem. From the perspective of a lot of these people, it's actually their anti-Zionism, or not even anti-Zionism, but just like anti-Israel. Their anti-Israel position born out of their anti-Semitism that's a problem. For many of these guys, for a very long time, they just basically would try to use the anti-Israel position to hide their anti-Semitism. And maybe some of them were also genuinely anti-Israel. However, the anti-Israel position became a popular one. It became the popular position in the independent circles. And while all of the stupid fucking liberal adjacent advocacy groups like the ADL were focusing on people like myself, these guys were just running amok. They were putting numbers on the board. And they could even present their previous deplatforming as proof that they were earnest, as a proof of their honesty, to say, look, I've been deplatformed everywhere because I was saying the truth. Not just saying the truth about Israel, but saying the truth about Jews. That's the reason why Nick Fuentes became so popular in the aftermath of the collective consciousness shifting on Israel. I think for a while, the reason why they didn't really handle neo-Nazis after October 7 was because they could always point to neo-Nazis to discredit the entire movement, right? They could just be like, you see, this is how the anti-Zionist movement is. They say they hate Israel, but they actually hate Jews. Look at some of the more popular figureheads in the anti-Israel movement. If they thought they could isolate the anti-Zionists who are simply anti-Israel but not anti-Semitic and deplatform them, then all that would remain would be these like weird, random anti-Semitic people. But the problem is they miscalculated. All of these advocacy groups, they miscalculated. They didn't think that like people would actually turn against Israel. So when all of the prominent voices, many of which on the right, became like some of the few popular critics of Israel, that ended up making people not just anti-Israel, but also anti-Jewish as well. If you learned about Israel's Holocaust from the likes of Tucker Carlson or the likes of, what do you call it, fucking Nick Fuentes or Candace Owens, and not from someone like me, then yeah, you of course were like, yeah, also it's the Jews. Yeah, and this was the method for the longest time. Look, in 2015, at Ann Coulter, tweets regarding Jews, awful nonsensical. But Ann Coulter is also super pro-Israel and always has been so I won't lose sleep.
Is joining the very forces that Project Esther is supposed to be designed to contradict and rebut and silence. Now he's realizing that, yes, Tucker Carlson says things that are honestly and truly evil against the Jewish community, and we cannot pretend that there's this idea of, no enemies on the right. That's great for political partisans, but if you're out there promoting values, and especially Jewish values, like we do as a Jewish organization, we're called Coalition for Jewish Values. We cannot pretend to be partisan. If we're going to call out Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, we're going to call out Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Two people that have never said anything anti-Semitic versus a woman who has literally said Jews have space lasers that they did wildfires with. And they're still doing it. They're still like, Zohran Mamdani is anti-Semitic. Motherfucker, it's people like myself, it's people like Zohran Mamdani who are the last non-anti-Semitic people out there who are still criticizing Israel, and you're still focusing on people like us. The fuck is wrong with you? You're a fucking idiot. There's like straight up people running around being like the international Jewry is responsible for hypnotizing every single person. And they're hypnotizing people to be woke and gay and consume pornography and love Israel unconditionally, blah, 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 all this shit. And you're over here getting mad at a person who's like, hey, I think we should divest funds from, people doing terrorism. Like people who are trying to sell illegally occupied properties that they stole from Palestinian people. If that's your main gripe, you fucking lost.
And Tucker Carlson when they use the same rhetoric. And what Kevin Roberts did was refuse to come in with that and even make us out to be the bad guys. And on the left, they allowed anti-Semitism to fester until it boiled over. And then all of a sudden...
Oh, it was the left's anti-Semitism that made the right anti-Semitic. Oh.
We have anti-Semites actually in Congress telling us horrible things about Jews. And Jewish organizations just sat there, or worse, became indoctrinated themselves. Now, on the right, that's not going to be allowed to happen.